Of Back at the Crib here on a Monday night, and this time it's Back at the Crib after the Super Bowl. Not that any of us were there or important enough to be there, but we're here to talk about everything that went down from what has been a wild last couple of days in terms of the NFL, and then a game that, quite frankly, I think we all kind of felt the same way about the game, like, because to me, I always thought that you could look at the roster from both teams, fellas, and say there's no question that from top to bottom, the Eagles had a better roster, period. But the thing that always seemed like to be the great equalizer is that they didn't have 15 and they didn't have Andy Reid. And outside of that, all of us were like, yeah, Philadelphia is just a better team. But how many times have we been down this path before where we have thought that? And yet here comes Andy Reid, here comes Spags, and here comes Pat Mahomes to end up pulling some magic out of the hat like they typically tend to do. And that just wasn't the case yesterday. I hope that both of you enjoyed it. I know that you probably didn't as Dallas fans, and that's okay since everyone just loathes Philadelphia. But curious as to both of your thoughts after we put a twisty tie, a bow tie on the NFL season and laid Lord Football down for another long summer's nap before we come back around to the fall.
Well, it was just disappointing that the game ended so quickly, right? I mean, I think once Cooper DeJean had the pick six, it felt like it was on the verge of being out of reach. And at that point, I kind of thought, like, it's going to take something really special for Kansas City to climb back in, because you could clearly see that Philadelphia was dominating the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. And then I think when Patrick Mahomes threw the interception on their own end of the field after the 2-minute warning before the first half, I mean, that was lights out, right? That was officially game over. They have no chance to come back. But, it's disappointing we didn't get a better game. I thought that, I mean, to your point about the two teams, I thought Kansas City might have been the better football team, but I thought the Eagles had the more talented roster, and they just absolutely whipped Kansas City's ass.
Yeah, I'm curious to know your reasoning behind as far as like Kansas City having the better football team, because it just seemed like if you're talking about coaching staff wise, I see your point, but for Kansas City to be in a situation to have a chance in this game, you knew you had to get the ball out of your hands quickly, and for them to kind of quickly get into the passing game and not go to the running game. I mean, they ran the ball, 3 times in the first half? And then on top of that, when you got down by 24 points, you were going to have to take, 3-step, 5-step drops and try to push the ball down the field to make up that margin. And that line of scrimmage being dominated by the Eagles, it just wasn't going to happen. So it was just interesting from that standpoint. But you guys, know my take. I mean, I just truly don't believe in NFL rivalries. I don't think that's like a real big deal. The way people try to make it, this Cowboys Eagle thing. I mean, NFL players can switch from one team to the next. I'm not about to get my feelings hurt over anybody in our division winning a Super Bowl. I'm kind of, shout out to the Eagles and Hurts and Saquon winning a championship and winning the Super Bowl, man.
Dude, you come from a completely different era than we do, because I'll be damned. Last thing I ever want to see, the stinking Seahawks win a championship, the freaking Rams. That's the last thing I want to see is a team in my division win a championship. I mean, I'm being a Niners fan. There's already the natural rivalry with Dallas that's there. Philly drives me crazy as well. Like, no, I don't want to see any of that. And it was weird because I felt like watching this, if Kansas City won, you tip their cap to them. I mean, the legacy talk towards the end of the Super Bowl I thought was ridiculous. Why do we always have to bring it back around to legacy? It's the dumbest point ever. Their legacy's already been written. They're just trying to add to it, for crying out loud. You can't take away anything that they've accomplished. And we're already talking like, oh, they're losing one. What does this mean for their legacy? You know what it means? Absolutely nothing. That's what it means. It means dick. It doesn't mean anything. They already have accomplished so much. So what what really gets me is watching it. Was I'm very protective of my team, and I'm sure you're the same way, Colby. Like, I didn't want Kansas City to win because my team was never able to accomplish the three-peat. We were a Roger Craig fumble away from going to 3 straight Super Bowls and probably had the best team in the league that year and would have won 3. You guys and the Cowboys were what, like a pass interference call away from maybe going to your 3rd, maybe winning 4 in a row at that time. I didn't want Kansas City to do that. So I was rooting for the Eagles last night, but then you wake up this morning and I just felt dirty. Felt like I needed to take an extra shower because I found myself, like, it dawned on me, like, dude, you were rooting for the Eagles last night. So there was not like a win-win situation at all for me.
I mean, it was kind of like the Eagles-Patriots Super Bowl when Nick Foles faced Tom Brady, right? Because that was like also the evil empire that was the Patriots. And then it's like Philadelphia, right? Like, nobody likes Philadelphia outside of Philadelphia. And half of Philadelphia doesn't like the other half of Philadelphia, right? But the Chiefs were the one thing that kind of, I think, drove some people to root for Philadelphia in this specific Super Bowl. But in terms of rivalries, look, I don't ever want to see a team from my division win a Super Bowl. But, like, going into this postseason, if you told me the Commanders won the Super Bowl, I'm fine with it because that means the Eagles didn't. There are rivalries that supersede just – like division rivalries, right? Cowboys Eagles is one of those.
Yes.
I think I work with a guy that's a giant Broncos fan, and he was kind of in the same boat I was, only with the Chiefs, right? Like, he hates the Chiefs, anybody but the Chiefs. He doesn't care who wins it, just not the Chiefs, because that's one of the Broncos' like natural big time rivalries. You think a Steelers fan ever wants to see the Ravens win a Super Bowl? Like,
no.
There are big time rivalries in the NFL that go beyond just like division rivals that you face every year.
I don't know, guys. Maybe it is the new generation of NFL fans that are just
it's you fantasy football, young people. That's what it is.
So many of us have like individuals on specific teams that, although we don't like cheer for that team, we root for that player. Like a guy like Jalen Hurts, a guy like Saquon Barkley, a guy like AJ Brown. Those are guys that's like, bro, yeah, I'm not mad if good things happen for them. I mean, it's not my fault that like my team can't get out of their own way to make it to the playoffs. But on the top of that, you know, if it's like in season and we're playing against each other, no, I'm not going to ever root for them and hope they beat my team. But if it's that team versus another team and it's just coming down to those two teams, you know, winning a championship, that doesn't matter. What matters is the next season, my team winning and moving forward.
Do you even like sports, Dion?
I know.
Like rivalries,
like in
professional sports, it's a business, bro. Like next year, Saquon, like Terrell Owens was playing for the 49ers, and then he was playing for the Cowboys, and then he was playing for the Eagles. Like, right. what am I?
And I hated him when
what
he was
am I
on
butthurt because he's
and I loved him when he was on one of those squads.
It's funny you asked that, Colby, because last week we came on here and all we talked about was the Luka trade, and Dion's like, I don't hate it. So does Dion like sports? No, I don't think he likes sports at all.
I love sports. I don't cheer and watch sports just to hate other people or find the evil empire. Like, nah, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for
you don't care if OU wins the national championship, right?
And love greatness.
So you don't care if OU wins the national championship in football next year?
See, that's where I draw the line. That's where I draw the line. College rivalries, I'm still here for. That
What are you talking about?
Just because you're not like as big a fan of the NFL as you are of college doesn't mean rivalries don't exist. And it's the same way in the NFL as it is for OSU and OU.
But that's the thing. Like now,
players leaving now
I can see now I can see where you're saying that because of NIL and players transferring from different schools. But before, it's like in the NFL, it's a business. One time, a player could be on, like Deion Sanders was my favorite player of all time. One year he's playing for the 49ers. The next year he's playing for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, that's the way I was raised. That's where I was brought up. I
loved him for a while, and I had to hate him for a year. That's
the thing. I never hated him. I always loved prime time, high stepping down the field.
Listen, I loved him, but I was rooting against him
Yeah, I had a CD and played Huff and Puff, Baby, Blow the House Down. Huff and Puff, Baby, Blow the House Down. And then when he went to the Cowboys the year after, I was like, I'm never playing this CD again. What are you talking about?
No, see, when he's playing for the 49ers and he's playing against the Cowboys, did I want him to win? No, of course not. But if he makes a play and is high stepping down the field the next week versus, the Vikings or so on, I'm not mad about it.
All right, so let's address the problem in the room. And the problem just hoisted the Lombardi Trophy last night. And they have the potential to be a problem for a very long time now, not just in the NFC, but in the NFL. It's pretty remarkable when you start breaking down what they've been able to accomplish since their first Super Bowl championship. You remember when they won, was that 17 or 18 they won? That team was thought to be on the outs because of age. Like everyone was like, hey, this is, glad they won it now. Now they're either going to have to start paying these dudes. Some of these guys are going to age out. Look at what they've done in a span of 6 years where they win a Super Bowl. They tear it the bleep down. They decide to move on from Carson Wentz, who was their future quarterback. They get all these picks from the Colts. They wisely, better than almost anyone in the NFL over this stretch of time, have identified players through free agency and have drafted using draft capital better than anyone. And then here's the other kicker. And it's pretty remarkable, and I'd love to hear Cowboys fans' opinions on this, because you hear Jerry and the Cowboys crew say things like, hey, well, sorry, we paid Dak and we paid CD. Now we're going to have to pay Micah. We're tapped out, guys. We're tapped out. When the Philadelphia Eagles have done nothing but do everything we just talked about in draft well, they also have 8 guys on that roster that are making over $50 million. 8 guys that are making over $50 million. Those 8 players account for 86% of their entire cap. 86%. They are drafting well. They're loading up on freaking dudes. And you know what? They're paying them. And they just won the Super Bowl with the youngest average age of 26 and a half. Gentlemen, the NFL has a problem, and they're the Philadelphia Eagles. They're probably not going anywhere for a while. Oh, and here's another novel concept. You got a mid-tier. Can we all agree on that? Mid-tier quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Love him, right? Love him. But no one's putting him in the top 10 by any means. And the Eagles have at least said, all right, we know we got to pay him, but we also realize that we have to help him out in his limited playing style by going and paying dudes on not just the offensive line, but paying our number 1 wide receiver, paying our number 2 wide receiver, paying our tight end. We have to be able to help this guy if we know and just basically admit he's a mid-tier quarterback, but he needs help. Geez, what a novel concept. And look, it actually works when you do it right.
I mean, too many teams decide to give a quarterback the big contract, and then they look at him and say, save us, Superman, because we're paying you.
Yeah.
Like Superman. Instead of realizing, yes, you have to pay him, but if you don't put pieces around him, he is what he is, right? And look, how human did Patrick Mahomes look last night? Right?
Yes.
You know why? Because he was under siege. He needs people around him, and it starts with the offensive line, and then the next step is the playmakers in the backfield and on the perimeter. And last night, his playmakers were not available. The offensive line was getting beat. He had no opportunities to make plays, and he made horrible plays because he was under siege. I mean, even mid-tier quarterbacks to great quarterbacks have to have some form of help around them. And the Philadelphia Eagles have, I think Howie Roseman, for as much as he, I think in the last 24 hours has got a lot of respect, he doesn't get enough. And he hasn't got enough over the last 5 years with what he's done with this Eagles roster. And the way that people talk about building a roster, some people are like, you have to do it through the draft. Some people do it through free agency, and other people talk about trades. There's no right way to do it, right? You just have to be a good talent evaluator and figure out where you can spend money, in what areas you can spend money, in what areas you can gamble, and in what areas you can cut the corners. And he's been a master at finding where he can cut the corners and knowing where he's pushing his chips all in. And he's done it in a variety of ways between the draft and free agency. And that roster right now is an absolute juggernaut.
I definitely want to give him credit for the team that he's put together. And some of it, I mean, let's be honest, it is luck, because Dean goes down from the linebacker position, and then number 42, who they just brought onto the team, and I'm blanking on his name, was Burke. He comes up and he's making plays left and right, and they didn't expect that. 53, they got him. I mean, he said it himself when he made first team all defense. He was like, "Did you expect me to be this type of player?" He's like, and he looked at him and said, "No, I did not." So it's on top of drafting well, because he's done that. Everybody's recognized that. I mean, they call him the Bulldog Eagles, because he's getting everybody from Georgia, which is rightfully so. I mean, those dudes are ballers. I mean, if it's working, why doesn't everybody else do it? But on top of that, he's getting lucky in free agency as well. And I don't want to diminish it. And I'm saying lucky for lack of a better word. But I mean, just finding players that are playing higher than their potential. And maybe it's because of the defensive coordinators putting them in the right positions to win, but they're finding something there, and it's working. But here's the thing: at some point, because of how young this defensive line is, I mean, all those guys across that line of scrimmage were young pups. I mean, they're gonna have to pay him. They are gonna have to pay him. The good thing, though, is they're not gonna have to pay him for a little while. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and other teams are going to pay some of the role players. So
that's part of the evolution of your franchise and your team year after year. Like Howie Roseman's not sitting there and it's like, well, mission accomplished. I can kind of sit back now. You watch it. They're going to go and they're going to continue to try to be aggressive. Not every move, by the way, that they've made in free agency has worked out. Like some of them haven't necessarily come through the way they wanted to. And they'll make a decision on a couple of those guys this year. And the other ones they've already moved on from. So I just like the fact that they're aggressive. Not only that, they're willing to take a risk. I mean, they came away.
Call it luck, but to your point, Pop, like you have to take the risk.
Yes,
right? You have to put yourself out there for that to maybe be a lucky scenario. And nobody else wanted to go get a running back like Saquon that's been hurt as much as he's been hurt. Right? Everybody says running backs are a dime a dozen. Nobody wanted to take that risk. He took the risk. They went and got AJ Brown a couple years ago from Tennessee on the trade market. They brought in Darius Slay.
Yeah,
I mean they've brought in outside people on top of drafting incredibly well, and there's been risk associated with some of those pickups, even if they're talented players. In terms of roster building, there's been risk and it's paid off.
Jalen Carter
a master
on draft day, remember? Like everyone, like, oh well, of course Philadelphia got it. Like when that happened, I think all of us were like, yeah, we can absolutely see that, that happened. It was either them or freaking Baltimore, right? There's like a couple of franchises that a player like that ends up going to, and you're like,
best player in the draft. We said it at the time, best player in the draft, and they get him at what, 10 or 11?
Yeah. Roll the dice on it. Let's go and look at what it's turned into.
Fell that far, but they could have followed everybody else, right, and just been like, oh, I'm scared, I'm not going to do it. And as not an Eagles fan, just seeing what they have. But yeah, I couldn't believe that when I heard that today, that those 8 guys are 80%, 86% of their entire cap. And they're smart the way that they do it. And you might have to start moving them to the top of the list in terms of the length of time that they've been doing it and for how good that they've been doing it. And, I just brought up the Ravens. We've always marveled at how good that the Ravens from an organizational standpoint have been at identifying talent and finding like a Ravens type player. Like I think you have to put Philadelphia in that same category now with identifying, all right, who's an Eagles player. And it doesn't make any sense because Sirianni was on the hot seat by week 4. They were 2-2. Yeah.
And then they go on this winning streak, and all you can hear is just like things aren't right behind the scenes. And, last year was really weird with that final 8-game stretch that they had. And, they just weren't the same after the Niners went in their last season and beat them. And, they still were able to find a way to sneak in. And you knew they had talent, but you just began to wonder, is Sirianni going to be the one to keep it all together? And, damn, man, just some of it just doesn't make sense in some instances with all of the extracurricular stuff that you hear that happens behind the scenes, but it also shows you what happens when you have a roster that is that talented.
Speaking of the roster being talented, it also helps when you have the centerpiece of your team, the leader guy of your team being Jalen Hurts, and him being so level-headed, and a guy like, as much as people want to knock him, I mean, his attributes as a quarterback are: one, he's tough; one, he's perfect for that offense, the way he plays ball, and just his mentality and his militant style kind of keeps everybody in check. I mean, even AJ Brown goes at him every other week, and you don't see him like waver too much. You don't see him kind of
he's boring,
fall into the noise. Nah, he stays straight. He stays the path, and he leads that team.
Yeah, I'm not using boring as a negative
thing, but there's been reports for 2 years now that he's not necessarily a leader on that team, and that the other guys don't really follow him, right?
I didn't read those reports.
Yeah, that's kind of been the word behind there. It's because he's not vocal. I mean, he's talked about before, almost feeling like he has to challenge himself a little bit more to be that way. And I can't sit here and say anything bad other than like Jalen Hurts is who Jalen Hurts is as a player. I mean, we heard nothing but great things, when he left Alabama, and all the great things you heard about him at Alabama and how much of a hard worker he was. And he carried that over to Oklahoma. And I mean, took that team not only to a Big 12 championship, but into the college football playoff. There's no knocking on him as a person or even player. He's just not like elite level dynamic that you would put at the top tier of the quarterback position in the league. Right. And that's fine. That's fine.
Your offense has what the Eagles have. You don't need.
That's right.
Josh Allen,
that's right. And all of our teams that we all root for are kind of in that same boat, right? Like, none of us are going to put Brock Purdy in the elite category status. The Niners are trying to do exactly what Philadelphia is. Hey, surround this dude with as much talent as possible. Dallas should be doing that with Dak Prescott. They haven't necessarily been able to do that financially the way that everyone wants them to, but that's kind of where Dak is at as well. It's very similar.
Once again, it's a failure with a front office, and the Dallas situation, I think, is a really good comp here, because what they did is they paid Dak, and at the time they paid Dak, that offense was loaded, right? I mean, they had pass catchers at the time. They had Zeke, who was a top 5 running back in the league. They had the best offensive line in the league at that point. And when they paid Dak, they basically looked at him and said, okay, now you have to take this thing over and win for us. And they quit paying attention to putting the pieces around him, right? And,
yes.
And slowly you saw all the personnel around him, from the offensive line to the skill position, diminish year after year after year. And you're just saying to this guy, like, we're giving you all this money, and you have to do something now that you've never done before. We've given you all this help all the way up to this point, and now we're not going to give you the same help because we're giving you all this money. It's just ridiculous.
I understand when a quarterback gets that kind of money, and you get that kind of money because you're that type of quarterback where you can erase some mistakes, you can correct some errors, right. But taking his protection away, and when that starts to diminish, and I know Dallas had one of the top tier offensive lines for a long time in this league, but ever since kind of Zeke fell off, the offensive line started to steadily fell off as well. And that's when you have to replenish and replace and keep that line, because if you're paying all that money, you might, when you buy a house, you got to buy insurance as well. And that's what an offensive line is. Protect the money, protect your wins, and make sure your team moves forward. Why do you think the Eagles won? Why do you think they propelled forward? Because they dominated the line of scrimmage offensively and defensively, and they got the best offensive line in the league.
And after they made that Super Bowl run 2 years ago, they paid Hurts all the money, right? And last year, it seemed like they kind of put him in that position, right? They kind of said, you're going to be this guy we're going to ask a lot more of you now that you're making all this money. And he struggled last year big time. And he struggled at the early point of this year. And then they started running. They were like, hey, here's a concept. It doesn't matter how much we're paying this guy. How do we make him play the position to the highest level he can play it? We're going to run the football.
Yeah.
Right. And we're going to put him in situations where he doesn't have to throw the ball 50 times in obvious passing downs where it's not really his bag. We're going to put him in positions where he can make big time throws that he's capable of making that can be successful, instead of just saying Jalen Hurts is going to go win us the game. And it's worked out incredibly well for them. And it's wild to me that more teams don't try to do that. They understood that even though they're paying him a lot of money, he does have some shortcomings, and they still game plan around that and don't put it all on him to go be the superhero.
Play to your skill, not your dollar value, man.
Where are we at on Kansas City moving forward? Because it feels like that they're going to have a few conversations with themselves in the mirror after what happened. You still got 15. You got Worthy. I don't know how you guys felt, but Travis Kelce looked about as old as he's ever looked to me. Not just, watching him on the field, but, even just there with his helmet off, he just had this look, and, they're ravaged up front on the offensive line. They've got some decisions that they want to make there. They got some holes. Their running game was crap the entire year. Even when Pacheco came back, he seemed like he was a shell of himself. They're still good, and they're still going to be a factor in the AFC, but this is another one of those decision time moments for the Kansas City Chiefs where they've got to start thinking about what their future looks like in 2 to 3 years as well.
I mean, I think they'll be right back in this position next year. They're not missing that much. If you go back a few years ago to when the Buccaneers beat them up in the Super Bowl, the issue was the same issue, right? It was the offensive line.
Yep.
And Mahomes got destroyed in that game, and that's what happened last night. The Eagles' defensive line dominated what was a pretty crappy Kansas City O-line for most of the season. They were able to manage it, right? But the offense was never great this year. And especially in this game, I mean, you moved Tooney to left tackle, and you essentially weakened both the left guard and left tackle positions by doing that. And they were absolutely dominated. They need to go get a couple tackles. Right. I mean, they completely overhauled the offensive line last time they had to do it, and it turned into a couple of Super Bowl runs. Right. I think they'll do the same thing, but everywhere else, defense is still good. I know they got beat up, but there was a pick six last night. And then at the end of the half, they gave up a touchdown because of a turnover that was inside the 10-yard line. Like up to that, that's when the game got out of hand. But up to that point, they were doing okay. The defense is fine. It's one of the best defenses in the league. Mahomes is Mahomes. And when you get Rashee Rice back into the mix with Xavier Worthy, and I don't know what Hollywood Brown's future is, but I think they're fine as long as they address a couple positions on the offensive line like they did a couple years ago. They'll be right back at the top.
Yeah, Colby's completely right about that. I mean, all they need to do, in my opinion, is fix that offensive line, and it's easier said than done. But skill position wise, they fixed that this year. They just ran into some bad luck with some injuries in some key spots that kind of really hindered them. But still, you have 15, so he was able to erase some of those mistakes and correct some of those errors. And defensively, they're good. I mean, they're getting a little older, especially with Chris Jones, and some of those linebackers were coming up off the turf a little slower than you would like to see. Secondary looks like it's getting better, although Watson let a big play happen behind him, and maybe you go get a corner or something, but Eric Reed looks great at safety. There's not a lot of pieces that they need to replace. It's just having a string of good luck with injuries and replacing things on that offensive line. And hopefully, Kelce still has a couple more, games under his belt because their dynamic within zone defenses really helps them be prolific, and they need Kelce with Mahomes until they find that next tight end. And they got guys like Wiley. I mean, I saw the pictures on Instagram about the tight end fullback position. They had too many tight ends and they had too many fullbacks in that picture. And they got to figure out one of those guys has to, step up their play so they can replace Kelce when the time comes.
And no one hired Spags. So they got one of the best defensive coordinators in the league that continues to come back. Speaking of defensive coordinators, I was trying to think, and I did not do any research on this from a stats perspective. I can't remember the last time that a defense was dead last in points allowed in the league. And then the next year they went from dead last to first in the league, the way that Philadelphia did with Vic Fangio. Unfreaking believable, the job that guy did. And I was looking at a few things last night. Everyone has talked ad nauseum today about, not having to blitz to get pressure on it. But Dion, I'll ask you, so the Eagles this year led the league in cover 6 rate. Last night, they flipped the script on the Chiefs and played almost 65-66% cover 4 against the Chiefs, something that they hadn't seen a lot of from Vic Fangio and the looks on film at all. But the thing about Vic Fangio, and he's been this way every place that he's been, is there's nothing in terms of exotic nature, in terms of scheme. They are just the best, one of the best fundamental defenses that you'll find wherever he's coached. And you can speak a little bit more to playing cover 4. Yes, obviously it helps when you got the front 4 generating the amount of pressure that you have last night. But let's not take anything away from the back end of that defense as well, because you've still got to be disciplined in what you're doing if you're going to play cover 4 against the Chiefs.
And here's the thing, again, like you said, having a defensive line like that, that you don't have to cover that long. And then on top of that, not enough is being talked about the secondary of the Eagles in this game, because you got a guy, and correct me if I say his name wrong, number 27, the rookie, was it LaMichael? The guy that they drafted from Toledo last year, and then Cooper DeJean as well. Like, LaMichael is a lengthy cornerback. I mean, and although he plays really good in man, his body is built to be a zone corner. So you can play cover 4 with him in a very specific type of way. And then with DeJean kind of being that cover, slot corner, and him being able to, cover the hashes on those covers 4 and push to 2, push the curl on 2, and be in those spaces and be there quickly and read and just being able to have that ability in the secondary to have your eyes on the quarterback, knowing that ball is going to be trying to be coming out quickly, is such a big advantage. And those guys did a great job of breaking on the football. On top of that, having the linebackers and being athletes that they are, to kind of break on those coverages and on those short intermediate routes as well. That's why you saw those interceptions happen the way you did. That cover 4, that switch for a guy like Mahomes, who's been practicing cover 6, which is, 4 on one side, 2 on the other, that helps tremendously. And it put them at a little bit of advantage. And that's kind of partly why the Patrick Mahomes in that offense started off so slow like they did.
Also a bunch of dudes on the back end that are position versatile, right?
Yes.
Both of the rookies are. C.J. Gardner-Johnson is a utility knife on the back end, and Darius Slay. I mean, they've just got so many versatile pieces in that secondary.
Well, you brought up Cooper DeJean. I don't know where Iowa continues to find these white guys that run like 4.2s and 4.3s, but another white guy special from Iowa. You sent this earlier.
His one mixtape, right?
Oh, I'm getting ready to play it right now. Let's take a little look at it right here for those that didn't see it. But Colby had sent this earlier today. I don't want to make sure I blow everyone's eardrums out, but this is the type of athlete that this kid was.
Look at White Mamba out here, guys. Look at White Mamba.
Oh, filthy.
Golly. He's doing it in traffic too, guys. It's not just fast break. It's in half-court offense. Off the dribble.
Here we go. Oh, yep. My man got some definite skills for sure.
that's the type of stuff that you see where like
giving hopes to people that look like me and Colby.
No. That's not hope. Okay, let's not misconstrue that, guys. Not everybody. There's outliers everywhere. Okay, but not all Kenyans win the mile and stuff. Okay, sometimes you got a guy from Australia can win too. Okay, there's outliers everywhere. Don't give yourself false hope.
Yeah, I won't at all. What'd you guys think about the presentation of the Super Bowl? Did you see the numbers? Most watched Super Bowl ever, according to Fox PR.
Oh, that can't be true because everybody was going to boycott, right? Nobody was going to watch it.
Yeah, I know. That's what they said. How did you think about the presentation? And did you guys watch any of the pregame stuff? Did you see AI Jimmy Johnson? That one was a little weird where he was talking to himself. And then I thought Jimmy was going to retire on the set on the pregame show. If any of you guys watched any of that.
Yeah, the tribute to Jimmy Johnson, I thought he was about to retire or they were about to do some sort of farewell. But I guess, and I didn't notice this in real time, I saw it a little later in the evening, but the AI images of him at Oklahoma State, there's an OU on the field. AI put OU on the field.
Oh my gosh. That reminds me of when they were renovating Boone Pickens. I remember the bricklayer put the OU and the bricks on the side of the stadium. And they had to go back and fix that. No, I didn't catch that. I'll have to go back and watch.
I didn't catch it either. Again, I saw somebody tweet it last night, and I went back and watched it, and sure enough, it's on the field. It says OU.
Man, these Sooners.
Come on, AI, do better.
These Sooners can't even. You can't even show up and work on Gundy's house in an OU T-shirt, right? Come on.
Were you guys outraged by the score bug?
Yes, it was way too big. What's happening?
I didn't watch the game and stay on X as well, so I kind of like I was noticing things on my own and not catching the side note from everybody else's at 2 cents. And I was in the third quarter, game was pretty much over from that standpoint anyways, and I was looking at the score bug and I was like, why is it so big? Why is it so prevalent? Why is it different like that? What are they doing?
It's almost like they had turned the largest font that you have on your iPhone on to read text messages. It was I kept last night I was like, this reminds me of like the Jitterbug font, like the old people Jitterbug phone, that just flopped open and had the large buttons on it, in case you're super old and you don't know how to work a phone. It was like the Jitterbug font. It was taking up way too much of the screen last night.
What else?
One of those things where it ruined the Eagles winning the way they did ruined the watching experience for me. But just in terms of the presentation, I didn't like it, but I wouldn't say it was something that I was just it was overtaking my experience, if that makes sense. I wasn't a fan of it, but
yeah, it's annoying.
I wasn't sitting there the whole time being like, this score bug is really pissing me off.
Another thing that I noticed that I wonder if you guys picked up on, and it was kind of small and minute and nitpicky, but when they would go to inside the booth with the broadcasters, and their background was them on the the strip.
On Bourbon, it was distracting in the first quarter. Yeah,
I was like, why would they be on the actual street calling the game? Why would they do that? Why would they make that their background? Just
and why was Tom Brady on the side that he was? That was kind of throwing me off a little bit as well. It's like I don't know. I always felt like
they should have been on the other side.
KB should have been here, and TB should have been over here.
Left to right. Play by play
I'm not a big fan of that crew, by the way. And I don't know, KB. Remember how we had the Tony Romo gym counter? I think we need to put KB on the right counter because he drops right about 70 times what it feels like in the middle of a broadcast. And then from KB to TB down to EA, it's like, oh, okay, all right, we get it. Enough with the initials here on this. The other thing, too, before we get into the performance by Tom Brady, let me share this and see if you guys caught this last night. And it was Tom Brady's watch. Were you guys paying attention to this?
Yeah.
Dion? No. So this is the watch that Brady had on right here.
Dion, guess the value.
Here it is right here, Dion.
Before you show him, Pop.
You want to take a guess on what that bad boy costs?
I mean, what, like 50,000, 20,000?
Oh, get out of here.
He could buy that at Gatesway for $50,000. What are you talking about?
What? I mean, I'm trying to see the brand and what. Like, I don't know what that is. I've never.
It's a Jacob and Co.
Okay. So it's out of my tax bracket. What's
Colby hitting with it?
$600,000.
See, I saw 800.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's the number I saw. Somewhere probably in that
I
range.
Saw today was 600,000. So
unbelievable.
Maybe what I saw.
Wow.
Wow.
Goodness gracious.
I guess it's good to be Tom Brady. I guess. How'd you think that he did?
He'll tell you all about it if you let him
right
while calling a football game.
But he won't tell us though. Is what it's like to be down by a significant number of points and what you have to do to kind of rally the troops and what's going through your head and how you're having to keep everyone calm and believe in themselves to try to bleed your team back from an ultimate deficit. Like there was no breakdown of that in the course of the game last night from Tom Brady.
Dude,
you were down 28-3 at one point. Like you led your team to come back one of the greatest comebacks in Super Bowl history. Tell us a little bit about that.
Did you break anything down?
They literally put the perfect game in front of him to broadcast. The perfect Super Bowl for him, like literally in the moment that we go down. And I was just in my house like, all right, it's about to be the Tom show. Just go ahead and start narrating the greatest moment in your career. Just go ahead and narrate. And like literally, he wouldn't take the steps to go off the cuff and kind of, because he didn't prepare for that. He did not.
I don't feel like there was ever anything of substance that he added to the broadcast.
Everything was like, when I'm in this position, I like. When I'm in this position, I like. When I'm in this position, I like. It's like, all right. What did you study the tape? What are the Chiefs like doing this position?
Allowing us to go on this Tom Brady show journey, sir.
He was up and down the entire year. There were times where I would watch and I thought, okay, I thought he was really good there. And then there were other times, and maybe this is just the journey. I mean, we're all setting here. I mean, he just finished year one as a broadcaster, and that's not an easy job, by the way, right? He'll grow into it a little bit more. So maybe we're holding him because he gets paid so damn much to a completely different standard.
Well, we're holding him to the standard that they put him on the Super Bowl ahead of Greg Olsen, right? Like that's
I know.
It's probably not fair to hold somebody in their first year to that standard, but he got that honor. So, like, that's the standard you're held to.
How dare you put him above third leg Greg?
Third leg Greg greater than CB12.
Bruh. But here's the thing.
My name is Greg. What do you do?
For me personally, I'm not holding him up to the standards of these upper echelon, broadcasters in their, fifth, third, 12th year broadcasting. I'm holding him to the standard of a first year broadcaster compared to other guys when it was their first year. Tom Brady, Greg Olsen, all those guys, when it was their first year, they brought something to the game. They brought something to the experience that I was like, wait, who is this? Oh, I'm impressed. Greg Olsen killed it his first year. Killed it. And for Tom to sit out a year, and on top of that, he was preparing for this. He was going to the classes. He was broadcasting games. He was doing preseason games. And then on top of that, you reach the end of the year, and you're still not bringing anything to the table for me. And I try to put my biases aside, and it's just not there for me.
I mean, I'm not, you guys know I'm not a fan of Romo in the broadcast booth at all. And, he's certainly a long way away from where he was in the beginning when everybody loved that he would call the play before it would take place. But at least with Romo, even now, I feel like there's still some substance at times. He still brings things to the table that I feel like I'm learning, right? Like he's telling me something that maybe I didn't know, or bringing up something that has something to it. Like Tom Brady doesn't do that at all. Everything Tom Brady says in there, I can say. from my couch.
Facts, man.
Do you guys remember all the names of the members of the 7th Floor crew?
Of course not.
Lil Nuke, Big Nick, Dub C, T-Buck, G-Reg.
There was a point that I could do G-Reg's entire rap.
Yeah. I got to let these chicken know Big Greg is in the house, and I'm fit to make these.
Where is Greg Olsen originally from?
I don't know.
Is he from? I don't know what his high school background is.
He can't be from Florida, can he?
I mean, I guess he can. I don't know why. He can for sure on that. All right. Outside of everything, putting a little twisty tie on this season, it does mean that we have now moved into the best season of the entire year, and that is draft season. So bring it on.
It's been draft season for me since like
oh my
October.
gosh. Yeah, I'm on. Do you know how many different pro football mock draft simulators I do a day? it's like I'm weighing all these. I'm like today when the Niners came up with the 11th pick, I saw trade request Kansas City. I didn't even look at it. I just hit reject like automatically because I'm a dork.
You guys were wondering, Greg Olsen's from New Jersey.
Okay, all right, yeah, that kind of fits a little bit. That fits for sure.
G-Reg.
Colby, we didn't get your thoughts last week as we kind of shift here because we will have to shift into a little bit of NBA. Do you have any quick couple of sentences on what the hell the Mavericks did? And I guess tonight we got our first debut as well of the Thunder in their full lineup with. I hate the nickname iHeart, mainly because I used to work there, but with Chet and iHeart in the lineup.
Well, I mean, the Mavs, WTF, I still can't make sense of it. Like, your GM just has a big ego.
Pretty much.
Not a big
25-year-old
Such
superstar.
a big ego.
I mean, it's still baffling to me a week later that was a trade. And the great part is Anthony Davis is already hurt, right?
I hated to see that.
His whole thing is they didn't like how Luka took care of himself, right? Like that was what they based this entire thing on. Like, don't admit that you don't hate that you hate the guy. You're not going to admit that. Yeah. So you're just going to base this entire thing on. You essentially don't like the way that he took care of himself. So you bring in a guy that's 32 years old that has had injuries basically his entire career. And in the first week he's in Dallas after what is, I think, the most insane trade in NBA history, the return is already hurt.
By the way,
people should run that man out of town.
Anthony Davis and that team was swatting the shit out of the basketball the other day. What, like 18 blocks? Like, my God, like there for a brief moment in watching that, you were like, yo. Maybe. I mean, and you could tell a little bit too, like Anthony Davis was maybe trying to go a little too hard, I think, in the return. And the Lakers weren't going to actually let him play until after the All-Star break. So maybe you could put this another one in the questionable decision category by the Mavericks to try to throw him out there in the few games before the All-Star break. But that's revisionist thinking now on something like that. But, for a brief moment there, you try to picture yourself with a fully healthy, front court of the Mavericks with everything they have going on. And now I saw tonight where like Gafford's banged up now. And it's just like, this is never really going to end up going anywhere because, AD is going to end up missing a month. And to your point too, like they continue to trash Luka. Luka is making his debut in about 1 minute from now with the Lakers. I'm going to have to turn that on here in a bit when we get done. But Dumont, who's the governor of the Mavericks, was trashing him again today. Yep. And I'm just like, man, you guys are tone deaf, completely tone deaf. Did you hear? Not only did they have extra security for the Mavericks games, did you have you seen the little media back and forth that's been going on in Dallas? between Tim McMahon and a guy that I've traded DMs with before. I can't remember what his last name is, but he's basically covered the Mavs for a long time on a couple of internet sites. So the report is that Nico was receiving death threats, and Tim McMahon reported that. Well, this Grant guy goes and reaches out to Dallas PD and was like, "Hey, have you guys had reports of any death threats?" And they're like, "No. The Mavericks have not reported any death threats to Nico," and wrote about that. And it's caused this back and forth. Have you seen it, Colby, on Twitter, where they're going at each other? Yeah, I'll have to send you some of the DMs a little bit where then it got nasty, because then it turned into a wannabe journalist doing stuff like that. Yeah. Well, anyway, they were confiscating. If you brought a sign into the arena that said "Love Luka" or "We love you, Luka," they took it away from you. Or if you didn't want to put it down, you had to leave. Any "Fire Nico" signs, you weren't allowed in the building. Any T-shirts that said "Fire Nico," like, you weren't allowed in the building at all. They were putting the clamps down on the fans, which I think is BS. In the first place. That is embarrassing as a franchise to do that on the first game. Now, they didn't boo AD, and which is good. They shouldn't have, because he's just kind of caught up in the middle of it. Right. But yeah, I don't like the way that this went down. By the way, the ticket caught up with the two dudes that brought the blue coffin to the celebration. Do you know how much that cost them by overnighting that coffin?
How much?
$3,000 to overnight a blue coffin. And they said, "Do you think that was worth it?" And they told the tickets, like, "Hell yeah, it was worth it, because we feel like a part of us died when they traded Luka." $3,000 to overnight a blue coffin, in case anyone's ever interested.
I was wondering why those guys only had, suit jackets, and they were wearing basketball shorts with it. And now I understand why. They couldn't afford the pants after paying for the coffin. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's just like, I don't care about the Mavericks, other than the fact that, I was excited for, I think, a really cool, 5-year run of maybe Mavs Thunder rivalry.
Yeah.
Like, it set up for that to be a really great rivalry for a while. I mean, assuming that, all the main pieces are around, but it's kind of a bummer that that's not going to be the thing that it was. But I think just overlooking any personal aspect of this, just the sports fan in me, I'm heartbroken for just sports fans in general with this type of thing. Right?
Oh yeah. Yes.
As a sports fan, these places charge so much money and demand so much of you, and you have to give so much to follow a team. To just have a player like that just ripped out from your organization because some GM has a big ego. It just
it's the most overlooked part.
Everything that is what being a fan of sports represents.
It's the most overlooked part of a trade like that is you are literally ripping the heart and soul out of a group of fans that's in a city that does nothing but hand over fist full of dollars every single way. And I know so much of it comes down to what happens on the court, but there's something to be said about having a player like that everyone loves. By the way, quick update. You guys will love this. So the Lakers were supposed to start at 9:30 on ESPNU. Here's a tweet. So at the same time, Houston and Baylor were playing Big 12 basketball on ESPN. They were like, "Screw you guys." They just bumped Houston Baylor to ESPNU to make sure they hit the Luka tip time at 9:30 tonight on ESPN.
Unbelievable.
That's awesome.
Hey, know your place. Awesome. Know your place.
I hope someone tells Kelvin Sampson that as soon as the game is over. Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. What else? We miss out on anything?
So did Kellen Moore get that job with the Saints?
Yeah.
How do we feel about Kellen Moore being an NFL head coach?
It's the Saints.
I mean, a lot of people thought he would have been perfect for the Cowboys because he's a yes man. So I take that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
I don't know. He may be a great head coach. To me, he seems like. I mean, the guy he worked under was Jason Garrett with the Cow. He's like a Jason Garrett type of guy to me. So
he doesn't move the needle or doesn't make you feel any type of
I don't
way.
think so.
Doesn't provoke a strong feeling in the
I don't
least
think
bit.
so.
Dion, who got cooked more last night, Drake or the Chiefs?
Oh, Drake.
Great.
Oh, Drake. Oh, Drake. Because, like, here's the thing. The game was over by halftime. And, like, nobody really cared. Like, you know, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Okay, cool. Drake? Bruh. That wasn't even the place that you should. Oh, that hurt. That had to hurt. And here's the thing. There was some controversy about should he sing the song? Is he gonna play the song? Should he not? Should he? And so when he did play the song and the way he led up to it, just by like teasing it, like
teased it twice,
and then actually, I didn't, because when he teased it, I was like, oh, he's not gonna do it. And then he teased it again.
Really?
He goes, oh, he's not gonna do it.
There was 0% chance he wasn't going to play that song.
He would have lost all cred if he decided not to do it.
I thought he was going to move past the moment. I thought he was going to that was going to be like, you know,
no, he doubled down.
I'm going to.
I'm still laughing. I'm still laughing at the grin that he had on his face when he dropped his name, looking straight into the barrel of the camera. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then to have the entire Superdome all at the same time, just waiting for the moment to sing in unison, A minor. Unbelievable.
Not one of your exes, but two of them. And Serena, you're not a performer. You're a tennis star. What are you doing crip walking on the Super Bowl halftime performance? What are you doing? Your man is the one who created Reddit, and you're crip walking on the stage in the Super Bowl. That was chef's kiss. That was the nail in the coffin right there, man. Golly. It's rough.
I loved it, but I love Kendrick Lamar, and I can understand how, you know, the people that had the opinion, like Rhett Lashley tweeted, the head coach of SMU, that he felt like that was the worst Super Bowl halftime performance ever. And if you're not a fan and you know nothing about anything that's going on, like, of course it's not going to be your cup of tea, but I love Kendrick Lamar. And I even thought, like, to be the visual of it was stunning too. Like, for them to come out and create the American flag the way that they did. And then the symbolism of him standing in the middle of the flag, like a divided United States. I mean, it just hit incredibly hard to me. I thought it was visually stunning. I love his music, and I thought for him to go out and basically do a one-man show, other than having SZA out there, and then DJ Mustard towards the end. I mean, I loved it.
And Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, that was one of the best parts of it. Yes,
coming in with those skits to kind of like divide and kind of like be that, bro, what are you doing? You know, to kind of add to that kind of, you know, being a rebel and fighting against the man kind of situation. That was beautiful too, man. That was great creative add on to the performance.
Yeah, Lil Wayne wouldn't have been able to do that. Remember all the talk about, we got to get Lil Wayne to do it because it's in New Orleans. Nah.
I'm sorry.
We're good.
Sorry, Wayne. You got some bangers done, but you're not the performer that Kendrick is.
We wouldn't have had Game Over and Lights in the upper deck of the Superdome at the very top if that was the case.
What is up with these bell bottoms, though, bruh?
Okay, so that's funny that you brought that up. We're watching last night. My wife goes, "He's wearing bell bottoms," and I was like, "Yeah, that's pretty crazy." So she looked them up today. And they're not even listed as bell bottoms. Those jeans are listed as boot cut. I'm like, that's the biggest ass boot cut I've ever seen. Those are basically bell bottoms that he had on.
Why was he wearing those?
What are you talking about? Next time you go out to the club, next time you go to the Houston Rodeo, you're going to have yourself a pair of those boot cut jeans like Kendrick had on.
No. They're not going to flare out that way. They're not going to be that flamboyant. I'm just going to get some regular boot cut jeans, you know, and throw some boots on. They're not. That was like Reba McEntire style.
Those had extra flair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a little bit. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, like
maybe a few too many pieces of
He
flair.
could have been the manager at is it Tchotchke's? in Office Space?
Yes, that's exactly what that
With all the
is.
flair.
All right, I think I want to share just two more things here. I always laugh at some of the celebration pictures from the Super Bowl, but this one cracked me up. Look at the
AJ.
size of
Oh, AJ.
absolutely spectacular from AJ. And the last one that I want to bring up, and I blame Colby for this. These two messages that you have sent me on Instagram of whatever this group of streamers, podcasters are, they've been in my head since you sent me this.
It's on my timeline all the time, bro.
Who the hell are these people? Like, what is glue.guy?
I don't know. I hate them though.
It's so enraging to listen to them. They're having a conversation right now.
Here's a question. I like Booby Miles.
yeah.
Here, you want to win? Put Booby in. I do like a Booby Miles.
Number 2, Booby Miles.
Come on. 2. Yes. Here's 2. Can I put it out there for you? And again, if these aren't on here, then I'm not playing. Spike.
Dude,
Okay, then go away. He's not on there. Quit playing.
we need to get burned
Yeah.
by the Little Giants and the Big Green.
Okay, hit me with.
Yeah, so they're picking what? They're picking the top movie
I think that one was
football
like
characters.
top 10
Fictional.
fictional football players
Yeah.
that weren't quarterbacks, I think, on that one. Because they
They-
do another one that
that's
was
right.
just quarterbacks.
That's right.
Yeah.
They do another one that's just quarterbacks. It's just as enraging as they are.
Yeah.
But like, they start naming off these people, and one, all three of them are annoying. Two, I heard one of them say, if you're going to do a movie draft on football players, at least know football movies. They
Right.
admitted to not knowing what the program was. Like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. All right. Well, I don't want to be the contrarian about this, but I mean,
Oh, go
Not-
ahead, Mister. That was a great trade, Nico.
but I'm just saying, like, you have to be. I get these guys are doing it on a podcast, so they should be well researched and well read about the subject matter. But you got to be like of a generation to know the program. And I only know the program because I stayed up too late watching movies on TNT at 2 a.m. Like, other than that, I probably wouldn't know about the
But
program.
if you're doing that segment, it is your job to know football movies,
Bro,
right?
Yeah.
Listen, I like Nigel Gruff as a character, but I'm not putting him top 5 in fictional football players from movies
Yeah, those
and then
guys are-
arguing about it.
Not at all. But as soon as you heard them say Icebox and Spike, you knew they were of the generation that did not know anything about the program.
But by the way,
Those movies came out.
I was going to say
At
they're
least
not
within
that
a
far
couple
from
years
each
of each
other. Yeah, Little Giants. I'm going to look this up. Little Giants.
But think about
Program
it.
was
though.
93, I believe.
But think about it though. Even if they came out together, the Little Giants.
Little Giants was 94.
Yeah, okay, so a year apart.
Little Giants is a kids movie, so you were a kid. If you hold it that dear to your heart, then you were a kid when you were watching that, and then you weren't being. I mean, think about the stuff they were showing in the program. That was like that had to be PG. You know, like you. They weren't kids weren't watching the program when that thing came out. That was like.
I was.
How old were y'all when y'all watched the program?
I was upset when we had to read that they took out the
They
scene
took out the laying on the street.
of him
scene.
laying in the middle of the highway scene. I was like, no, I want to see that.
How old were you guys?
11.
See, that's the age of where you're like watching.
What year to come out?
questionable stuff.
93.
93. Yeah. I was 12, 13.
See, I was born in '92, and I loved the Little Giants, and that didn't. Know
I liked it
anything
too. I
about the
watched it.
program. I don't know, guys. I just think it's generational differences.
Of course, you're also talking to the kid whose mom went out of town one night, and my dad, at the age of 6, was like, "Oh, hey, let's go to the store and rent some movies." And he rented Mad Max 2 and just set me down in front of the TV and was like, "Here you go," like little 6-year-old me. You know, it's like you know, I'm watching Lord Humongous, King of the Wasteland, at the age of 6 when
My
I
dad
probably
did
had
that, but
no
I think I
business.
was 8 or 9.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite as
So-
young, but yeah.
We all had those moments where our dad looked over and said,
Yeah.
"Close your eyes," and we were all like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was watching the Full Frontal scene from Revenge of the Nerds like on a loop when I was probably like 7. So what, you know?
good
But anyway, I'm not mad at Colby, but I have to let you know that since you've sent me those clips and me clicking on them has now populated them
Yeah,
also in
it's-
my feed now. It's one of the worst Instagram experiences I think that I've had in quite some
Well, at
time.
least we can all rage watch them together.
For real though, because the quarterback one had me like, "Hey,
Yeah.
bro, hey." Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to like, I don't know, maybe we should do our own list.
Well, we did, and that got us fired from radio. All right. I think we'll end on that note. Not that I'm bitter or anything. I appreciate both of you for spending another Monday night hanging out. Let's go watch Luka. I think his over-under tonight was like 26. Are you going over or under on Luka total points?
Under.
Give me the over.
26 a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, first time coming back for a while. Yeah, I might take the under, but boy, would I like to be there on April 9th when he returns to the
The
American.
Lakers will help him get that, though. This won't be
Yeah.
like a Luka go get 30 points. They will make it a point to give extra passes to him and things of that nature.
Yeah, you're probably right. All right, fellas, have a good night. Good to see you all, and we'll try to do this again next Monday. Appreciate everyone for tuning in on X and on the YouTube stream as well. House of Pop, the House of Pop. Watch the previous episodes and click that subscribe button as well. We'll see you next Monday. All right.